You've been running 15 minutes a day and telling yourself it doesn't count. That's the mistake. That's the one that's been eating people alive for years. And nobody's told you the truth about it because the truth doesn't sell supplements or $50 training plans. You think real runners log 10 miles before breakfast. You think if it's not painful, it's not working. You think 15 minutes is a warm-up, not a workout. And that belief, that one dumb belief, is why you've quit running 4 times in the last 2 years. Let's fix that today, right now, before you lace up again and waste another season chasing the wrong goal. Here's the reality check, and it's going to sting a little. In 2014, researchers tracking over 55,000 adults for 15 years found something that should have made front-page news everywhere, but barely got a headline. People who ran as little as 5 to 10 minutes a day, at slow, easy paces, cut their risk of dying from any cause by nearly 30% compared to people who didn't run at all. Not marathoners. Not the guy doing 100-mile weeks. People jogging 10 minutes. That's the Lee study, published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. And it's been sitting there for over a decade while everyone kept chasing mileage, like more was automatically better. You've been optimizing for the wrong variable this whole time. Now here's the part that's actually going to change how you show up tomorrow morning. Your body doesn't know the difference between a real workout and a short one. It only knows stress and adaptation. 15 minutes of running raises your heart rate, forces your mitochondria to work, and triggers the exact same cellular signaling that a 60-minute run triggers, just with less total volume. Mitochondria, in case nobody explained it to you in a way that wasn't boring, are the power plants inside your muscle cells. Back in 1967, a physiologist named John Halossi ran a study that became the foundation of everything we know about endurance adaptation. He found that consistent aerobic exercise, even moderate exercise, doubles the density of mitochondria in trained muscle within weeks. Doubles it. That means your cells get better at converting oxygen into usable energy, which means you get less tired doing the same activities, which means stairs stop feeling like a war crime. That adaptation doesn't require suffering, it requires consistency. So why does everyone still think short runs are a waste of time? Because the fitness industry sells intensity. Intensity looks good on camera. Nobody's making a viral reel out of a chill 15-minute jog around the block at a pace where you could hold a conversation. But here's a question worth sitting with for a second. What if the thing that's actually stopping your progress isn't a lack of effort, but a lack of patience with something that looks too easy to matter? Let's talk about what's actually happening physiologically when you run at an easy pace for a short window. Your heart, which is a muscle, starts adapting almost immediately to regular aerobic stress. Stroke volume, meaning the amount of blood your heart pumps per beat, starts to improve within the first few weeks of consistent light training. That's not opinion, that's basic cardiovascular physiology, taught in every exercise science program in the country. A stronger stroke volume means your resting heart rate drops over time, which means your heart isn't working as hard just to keep you alive while you sit at your desk. You're not just building running fitness, you're rebuilding the efficiency of the organ that keeps you breathing. And here's where people usually mess it up. They hear 15 minutes works, and they think, great, I'll do 15 minutes as hard as I possibly can, sprint the whole thing, leave it all on the pavement. Wrong move, completely wrong move. The studies that show benefit from short duration running are almost always talking about easy to moderate effort, not max effort sprinting every single day. If you turn every short run into an all-out sprint, you're not triggering the mitochondrial and cardiovascular adaptations we just talked about. You're triggering fatigue and inflammation, and eventually an injury that keeps you on the couch for 6 weeks. Slow is not the enemy. Slow is the mechanism. Here's a number that might surprise you. Elite marathon runners, the ones running 2 hours and change for 26.2 miles, typically have VO2 max values somewhere between 70 and 85 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute. The average untrained adult sits somewhere around 35 to 40. That gap looks enormous, and it is, but almost nobody builds that gap through short, easy sessions alone, and almost nobody needs to close the whole gap to feel like a different human being. Even moving your VO2 max up by 10 or 15%, which is absolutely achievable with consistent, easy running over a few months, changes how you feel walking up a hill, playing with your kids, carrying groceries up 3 flights of stairs. You don't need Olympic-level lungs. You need slightly better than yesterday lungs. So let's get practical, because theory doesn't get anyone off the couch. If you've got 15 minutes, here's what you actually do with it. You run at a pace where you could speak in full sentences without gasping. If you can't hold a conversation, you're going too fast. Full stop. You do this most days of the week, not because more is always better, but because your body responds to rhythm and repetition, not to heroics performed twice a month. You don't need a GPS watch analyzing your cadence. You don't need carbon-plated shoes. You need your legs moving at a pace that feels almost embarrassingly easy for a stretch of time that fits into a lunch break. That's it. That's the whole system. Here's a contradiction that's going to mess with your head a little. The people who improve the fastest in endurance sports are very often not the people training the hardest. They're the people training the most consistently at the right intensity. There's a well-documented training principle called the 80-20 rule, sometimes called polarized training, where roughly 80% of your running volume happens at an easy conversational pace, and only 20% happens at genuinely hard efforts. Researchers studying elite endurance athletes across multiple sports found this pattern repeating over and over, not because easy running is a nice to have, but because it's the actual engine behind long-term adaptation. Hard efforts without a deep base of easy volume just produce burnout and stagnation. You've probably been doing it backwards your whole running life, going hard every single time you lace up, because going easy felt like cheating. Let's sit with that for a second, because it matters. Going easy is not cheating. Going easy is the strategy. The people who quit running usually quit because every session felt like punishment. You can't sustain punishment for years. You can sustain something that feels manageable, something you can fit into a life that already has a job, kids, traffic, and approximately 4 hours of free time a week. 15 minutes at an easy pace is sustainable. 90-minute sufferfests 3 times a week are not for 95% of people reading this. Here's something worth chewing on. Your breathing pattern while running is doing more work than you realize. Rhythmic breathing, meaning syncing your inhale and exhale to your foot strike pattern, helps regulate carbon dioxide levels in your blood, which directly affects how efficiently your muscles use oxygen. Most new runners breathe erratically, gasping when things get hard, holding their breath without realizing it during tense moments. That erratic pattern spikes perceived effort, even when the actual physical demand hasn't changed. So part of what makes a short, easy run feel sustainable isn't just the pace. It's learning to breathe like you're not being chased by something. Now, here's a cliffhanger worth thinking about before we wrap this up. What happens after week 3 when 15 minutes starts to feel too easy? Because it will. Your body adapts faster than most people expect, and there's a very specific decision point that shows up right around that moment. A decision that determines whether you keep building or whether you plateau for the next 2 years without knowing why. We're not solving that today. Hold on to that thought. Let's bring this back to something honest. The frustration you felt with running probably isn't about a lack of willpower. It's about chasing a version of enough that was never realistic for your life, your schedule, or your current fitness level. You compared yourself to someone doing 40 miles a week and decided 15 minutes wasn't worth showing up for. That comparison cost you months, maybe years, of progress you could have already had in the bank. The runners who actually transform their bodies aren't the ones who do the most. They're the ones who keep showing up long after everyone else quit, because what they're doing doesn't destroy them every single time. Here's the moment where this should click for you. 15 minutes, done consistently, at a pace that respects where your body actually is right now, is not a compromise. It's not the beginner version of real training. It's the foundation every elite athlete on the planet was built on before they ever ran a mile at race pace. Nobody starts at the top of the mountain. They start at the bottom, walking, then jogging, then running, one unremarkable session at a time, until one day the unremarkable sessions add up to a completely different body, a completely different resting heart rate, a completely different relationship with stairs, hills, and their own stamina. That's not motivation talk. That's just how adaptation works, whether you believe in it or not. So tomorrow, when you're standing in your kitchen deciding whether 15 minutes is even worth it, remember the mitochondria doubling in density. Remember the almost 30% drop in mortality risk from a stretch of running shorter than a sitcom episode. Remember that your heart is a muscle that responds to consistency, not to punishment. Put your shoes on, go slow, come back tomorrow and do it again. That's the whole transformation, hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to stop overcomplicating it. But here's the question that should actually keep you up tonight. Fine, you've got the base. You're logging your easy minutes, your heart's adapting, your mitochondria are multiplying. What do you do when base fitness stops being enough? When you actually want to get faster, not just healthier? That's a different problem, and it's got a very specific answer. One number, in fact, that determines almost everything about your ceiling as a runner. It's called VO2 max, and there's a fastest way to raise it, a method backed by exactly the kind of research we've been talking about today. And it's entirely realistic to see real movement on it before August. We're going to break down exactly how, step by step, in the next episode. And trust me, it's not what most YouTube coaches are telling you to do. If this shifted something for you, hit subscribe so you don't miss it. Drop a like if you're done pretending 15 minutes doesn't count. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to see how far this reaches. Share it with the one friend who keeps telling you they don't have time to run. And if you want the full training system behind everything in this video, the membership link is pinned in the comments below. See you in the next one.